I bought 8 sets of Amazon wrenches to test to find out which cheap set of Amazon wrenches is the best. First up is the cheapest set made by Genly Tools. It's an 8-piece set for $12.99 or $1.63 a wrench. It comes with 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, and 19, skipping 9, 11, 16, and 18. So if you need those, that might be a deal breaker for you. Let's have a look at the wrenches. They come in this black bag. Snaps closed, and we're going to be testing the 19mm from all the sets in our test today. Let's get a thickness measurement on this. Thickness might be important to you depending on how much clearance you need to get your wrench into where you're trying to use it. And the Genly comes in at 6.8 millimeters thick, and the jaw width is 19.4 millimeters. I have a setup here to test all the wrenches until they slip on a grade 5 nut that is 19 millimeters with a torque meter attached here, and we're going to replace the nut with every test. Let's look at the rest of the wrenches first. Next in order of cheapest to most expensive is this set of 9 pieces for $14.99 or $1.67 per wrench. There's no brand on the packaging, but it was sold on Amazon by Suosi GSCM. And once again, we're going to be looking at the 19mm. This set skips 9, 16, and 18mm. Let's get our thickness measurement. This wrench measures in at 6.7 millimeters thick. That is 1/10 of a millimeter narrower than the last wrench, the Genly. And for width on the jaws, we have 19.4 millimeters, the same as the Genly. Next up from horusdy, we have a 12-piece metric combination wrench set, 8 to 19 millimeters with no skips for $16.99 or $1.42 a wrench. Here's the wrench and wrench holders out of the box, and we just need the 19mm. Comes out like so. And let's get our thickness measurement on the 19mm. So the 19mm from horusdy is 8 millimeters thick, which is much thicker than the first 2 brands we tested. And our width is 19.3 millimeters, a whole 1/10 of a millimeter tighter tolerance than the first 2 wrenches. Also at a price of $16.99 or $1.22 a wrench for 14 pieces, 6 millimeters through 19 with no skips, is this basically no-name brand set sold by Essential on Amazon. You open it up and you get a tool roll, and that's how these wrenches are presented to you in a roll. They're a panel-style wrench like the old Craftsman. And we need the 19mm for testing. So the 19mm wrench from what I'm going to call Essential measures in at 6.5 millimeters thick and a width of 19.4 millimeters. Next up at a price of $19.99 for 12 pieces or $1.67 a wrench is this valuemax set. It comes in a box like this. Everything is wrapped in plastic wrap. And the wrenches come zip-tied together with the wrench holder separate from the wrenches. I went ahead and assembled the wrenches in the wrench holder, and it was not that bad of an experience besides the 19mm not fitting in its slot properly. Now let's get the 19mm out and get our measurements. So the thickness on the valuemax is 7.1 millimeters, and the width is 19.3 millimeters. Next up, with 2 more sets to go after this, is the Efficery 20-piece set, and this one's SAE and metric for $21.99, or the cheapest price per wrench so far of $1.10 each. That gives you a metric set of 8 through 19 with no skips, and an SAE set of 5/16 through 3/4 with what I believe to be no skips as far as standard SAE sets are concerned, but I mainly use metric. This is also the only set we'll be testing today that has SAE and metric. So first up is our thickness measurement on the Efficery, 8.4 millimeters. That's the thickest today. And a jaw width measurement, that can't be right, 19.2 millimeters. The tightest jaw width we've had today on a 19mm wrench. Second to last, we have this set from Swanlake Garden Tools for $23.99 or $1.60 each per wrench. And this one is 8 through 22 millimeters with no skips. So unlike the other sets, this one also comes with 20, 21, and 22 millimeter in the high end. And this set comes pre-assembled with a carry handle. Let's get our 19mm wrench out of there. and get our measurements. Thickness, we are looking at 8.2 millimeters, or 0.2 of a millimeter thinner than the last brand. And width-wise, we're looking at 19.2 millimeters, which is also a really good tolerance compared to the other brands. The last and most expensive set in this video we'll be testing is the Duratech set. It is an 11-piece combination wrench set for $24.99, or $2.28 a wrench. And it is 8 millimeters through 19 millimeters, but it skips the 9 millimeter. Our Duratech wrenches come inside this box. There's a little card, and they're wrapped in plastic. We've got our 19 millimeter here from Duratech. Let's see what it tests at for thickness. 8.1 millimeters thick on the Duratech, and a width of 19.4. Pretty loose tolerance compared to the last two wrenches we looked at. Now comes the fun part of our test till failure. I've got a 19 millimeter hex key in this wrench on an extendable breaker bar, and that's how I'm going to apply enough leverage to make the wrench slip. I'm going to have to get another bite. And the Genly slipped at 80 foot-pounds. When a wrench slips, sometimes cheap jaws will stretch, so we're going to check each wrench to see if the jaws got wider. And the Genly did indeed stretch. We're at 19.7 millimeters. That's a stretch of 0.3 of a millimeter. Next up with a fresh nut is the Horusdy brand wrench. I need to extend the extendable breaker bar a little bit. Gonna have to reposition the nut in the testing apparatus. So after having to reposition the nut and also get out an extension for my breaker bar because it just kept biting and biting and biting into this nut, the max torque we saw was 112 foot-pounds. Let's check the jaws on this wrench for stretch. And they are 19.4 millimeters, so they did not stretch at all. There also isn't any visible damage whatsoever to the wrench jaws. Next up in our testing is the horusdy. The horusdy slipped at 90 foot-pounds, and the stretch on the horusdy is 0.2 of a millimeter. Next up we have the Essential brand wrench. We're going to test it to failure. $70 foot-pounds. The Essential brand wrench was 19.4 millimeters, and it stretched to 19.5 millimeters. Next up, we're testing the ValueMax wrench to failure. I'm gonna have to get another bite. 104 foot-pounds so far. Let me put the cheater bar on it and see what happens. $105 foot-pounds. And the jaw measurement on the 19 millimeter is 19.4 millimeters, which is a stretch of 0.1 millimeters. Next up, we have the Horusdy. We're going to test it to failure. Putting on a cheater pipe. Just trying to keep a safe distance here. Got to get another bite on it. "106 foot-pounds." So that's 106 foot-pounds for the officery. Oopsies. And it measures in at 19.4 millimeters, whereas before it measured in at 19.2. So that's a stretch of 0.2 millimeters. Next up, we have Swan Lake Garden Tools test of failure. Let's get seated on the nut and see what happens. 85 foot-pounds. So the Swan Lake made it to 85 foot-pounds and now measures, if I could stay on the jaws, 19.5 millimeters, which is a stretch of 0.3 of a millimeter. Pretty severe. Last up, from the most expensive set we're testing, is the Duratech 19 millimeter wrench. "94 foot-pounds. Now let's measure the stretch on the Duratech wrench. And the Duratech wrench measures in at 19.5 millimeters, or a stretch of 0.1 of a millimeter. So cheap Amazon wrenches, which ones are the best? Well, our testing showed that the Suosi wrenches had the highest amount of torque applied to the grade 5 nut, with the second best being Efficery. So, in my opinion, the Suosi is the best based on testing as far as applying torque. However, the best set of wrenches and best value, I would say, goes to the Efficery, as it has a full metric and SAE set within our price range. That's $21.99, and it got the second best torque rating, and that's $1.10 a wrench. I just think that's a really good value for the Efficery wrenches. Really surprising win there, with these being $1.10 each. And they're basically no-name wrenches. They just say drop forged on them and nothing on the other side. But so are the Suosis. They're also no-name wrenches, even though they came out on top. They do look the coolest, though, with this bead blasted finish. They just say chrome vanadium DIN 3113. Anyways, if you'd like to see more videos from me like this, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. Comment some suggestions and help me recoup some of the money that it costs to buy all these wrenches. Thank you all for watching, and hope to see you all next time. Bye.